Hey, real quick, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been feeling like your brand needs a little love, but you're not quite sure where to start, I have just the tool you need. The Standout Brand Audit Bot is an AI-powered guided audit that shows you exactly what's working, what's not, and how to strengthen your brand using my proven Standout brand system. In 10 minutes or less, you'll walk away with clear next steps to move your brand forward with purpose. It's completely free. Just head to the show notes to grab the link and get started. If you have a business, then you need to know how to sell. And that can be one of the clunkier, crunchier parts of business for a lot of us that we didn't really sign up for. We have a skill that we want to share with the world, and selling never really was on our radar when we decided to start our business. But CEO of Sales Maven, Nikki Rausch, has the unique ability to transform the misunderstood process of selling. With 25 years of selling experience, entrepreneurs and small business owners now hire Nikki to show them how to sell successfully and authentically. I'm so excited to have Nikki here today to chat with us about sales, branding, NLP, and so much more. If you have been struggling with sales in your business, or you just want sales to feel easier and better, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. All right, welcome back to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. I'm so excited to have Nikki Rausch here. Nikki is the CEO of Sales Maven, and she has been doing sales for 25 years. So she has lots of great little nuggets she's going to share with us today. Thanks so much for being here, Nikki. Why don't you give us a little intro into who you are, what you do, and how you got here?
Okay, so my company is Sales Maven, as you mentioned. I am a sales strategist and coach. I specialize in teaching people how to have more strategic and effective sales conversations. So if you're selling to, people through DMs, if you're emailing with your clients, and if you're having live conversations, I can offer you strategies that help to do that. My background, like you said, I've been in sales for many, many years. I have over 25 years of sales experience. I am a master certified practitioner of Neurolinguistic programming, which I know we're probably going to talk a little bit about. And if that's a new term to anybody, it's essentially the study of communication. So I combined my NLP background with my sales background, and now just show up and teach people how to be more strategic in their conversations.
Awesome. Cool. And tell us a little bit about how you got into this whole online business thing, because I know you kind of had like more of a corporate sales background. So what transition look like for you?
Yeah. So the transition for me was I got to a place in my corporate sales career where I was just starting to feel like, is this it? Is there anything else out there for me? Or what else am I going to do? I had hit a pretty significant benchmark. I had just turned 40, and I felt like, I don't know if I want to be standing here 10 more years talking to the same people doing the same thing. That got me really curious. So I ended up leaving my industry. And when I left, I went to work with my NLP teacher actually to help her grow her business. She had just moved to the state that I was living in. And that was the first time I started hanging around entrepreneurs. And I really loved being around entrepreneurs coming from a very corporate background. They're so passionate and they want to make an impact in the world. And that just felt really attractive to me. This whole concept of like, follow your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. Like, I never got that. I didn't understand that. I was like, I have no passion, not even an ounce of it in me. I don't know what that means. And all of a sudden I was around these super passionate people. And as I got to know some of them, I realized that they were really struggling to make money with their passion. And it was because they didn't understand how to be effective in sales. So I started just helping some of them on the side that wanted like sales strategy and advice, not with this idea of having a business, but just wanting to spend time around super cool, passionate people. And my business was really born out of somebody pulling me aside saying like, why are you not teaching this? Like, why are you not helping more people? And I thought, well, that seems dumb. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, maybe I could do this. So here I am 12 years later, having the time of my life, working around the coolest, passionate people and teaching them how to be more effective.
Yeah, I love that. I talk a lot about how, in my case, I started my business kind of similarly to you. Like, went to college, got the degree, got the really great corporate job right out of college. And I'm not kidding you, I made it 11 months before I was like, I can't keep doing this for the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay.
I stayed in a couple of other corporate jobs for a few years after that while I was building my business. But I started my business not because I wanted to be a business owner. It was because I hated corporate life. And I was like, I have the skill that I think people will pay for, but we're never taught how to run a business, how to do our bookkeeping, how to incorporate as an LLC, and most importantly, how to make sales. And you don't have a business if you don't make sales. So I think so interesting that you were like, I don't know if people really need this. And I'm over here like, no, that's like the one thing that almost every entrepreneur is missing.
Yeah, it's been a really fun journey. And for people to realize, because, I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, it's so easy. I'm just going to put up a website and people are going to flock and they're going to buy my stuff. And I don't really have to spend any money on marketing. And I definitely don't have to invest anything in learning how to sell. And it's like, without those two things, people don't just flock to your website and buy like that. If you've heard some story of that happening for somebody, that's a one-off. That is not an everyday experience.
Yeah, that's a fluke for sure. And I have to have that conversation with clients a lot, that I'm like, I can design you the world's most beautiful brand and the best website ever, but you have to get people there and it has to be set up to sell for you. Otherwise, they're going to come and they're going to say, oh, wow, Nikki's website's so beautiful. She seems like a really nice person. Bye. And
like, what do I do now? Yeah. Like, there has to be a sales component.
And I don't know what it is that like got in our heads that selling has to feel gross or icky, or that we're being like manipulative whenever we sell. I know you talk about that a lot on your podcast, which we will link in the show notes for listeners. But what would you say to somebody who's like, well, I don't want to be salesy?
Yeah, I would say, well, first, I understand because you've probably been on the receiving end of somebody who it has felt icky and gross to be in a conversation with somebody who was being pushy and aggressive with you. What I teach, that sales isn't something that you're doing to another person. It's something you do with another person. And when you can start to shift your mind a little bit around, this is me showing up and being of service to somebody. This is me not trying to convince anybody to buy from me. This is just asking questions and asking smart questions in a way that helps me identify, am I talking to an ideal client, or am I talking to somebody who it's nice to have met them and I can bless and release and move on? But if you don't understand how to ask the right questions, if you don't understand what's going on in the conversation, then you might just be gathering friends, and or you might just be talking to people who will never remember your name or think about you again, because there's no strategy or structure to what you're doing. Sales doesn't have to feel gross. And frankly, one of the things that I pride myself on is many of my clients will come to me with this idea of like, oh, I've been so hesitant to want to learn how to sell because it does feel gross and manipulative. And then they will say something to me like, I just had somebody buy from me and they said to me, that was the best sales experience I've ever had. And it's like, yeah, because you learned how to do it in a way that isn't manipulative. It isn't gross. It's about doing it with somebody. It's not about talking at somebody. It's talking with somebody. And it's being of service and doing it in such a respectful way that the other person is like, that's the best dang experience I've ever had. Great. You nailed it.
Yeah. And I am by no means a sales coach, and it's transparently something that I struggle with here and there. But I always tell clients that I'm working with, if it's in a coaching capacity or if we're just chatting about business or whatever, that if you feel like you're having to convince them or you're like begging for the sale, you're probably doing it wrong. Exactly
you are
like you
doing
said.
it wrong.
You should not feel that way. And when you're doing it right, you literally have people lining up being like, please let me give you my money. And that's what we're after.
Yeah, people should feel really good about the conversation, and it should unfold naturally, which is why, I wrote my third book around this. I teach the structure of a successful sales conversation, and it's 5 steps. And the idea isn't to just, and this is where most people it goes off the rails, is they think we started a conversation and now I need to ask you for your business. Well, it depends what step are you on, because if you're still on step 2, you shouldn't be asking anybody for their business. So you need to understand, where are we in the conversation and what makes the logical next thing to say or do here, so that we get to the place where we get to step 5, where I do actually ask you for your business, but you're so primed and ready for it at that point that it's really just about you making a decision. It's not like, where did that come from?
Yeah. It's not like those like cold DMs that we get of, oh, hey, do you want to grow your Instagram by 5,000 followers or pay to be in this publication or whatever? It's none of
Oh
that.
my
And I
gosh.
also talk a lot in various ways on the podcast about basically just running your business with integrity. And I feel like that's exactly what your method of sales is about. If you are not a good fit for somebody, you're going to tell them that. And if you are, then you're going to offer your service to them and you're going to follow through and show up and do exactly what they would do. And then that client is going to say, oh my gosh, this was the best experience ever. I can't wait to recommend you to all my friends.
That's right. There are really kind of 3 things that need to be in place before the sale can happen. I would say, like, number 1 is, does this person even have a need for what it is that you offer? Because you can't manufacture that. Number 2, do you have an offer or a solution that's going to meet that need? Great. You've got those 2 things in place. And here's the third, and this is the kicker. This is the one that people often miss, is, do you have permission to put your offer in front of them? And when those 3 things are in place, like, selling gets easier, not just for you, by the way, but for the buyer too. They're like, this is the best sales experience I've ever had, because you're meeting a need, you have a solution, and you have permission to sell to them. And that's why we're all disgusted by these DMs and these emails that just show up out of the blue of like, hey, Nikki, I looked at your YouTube channel. You really suck at YouTube. You should totally hire me. And it's like, well, first of all, you just insulted me, and I never even said I care about your opinion about my YouTube channel. So go kick rocks. Like, no thanks.
I knew exactly what the rest of that sentence was going to be as soon as you said YouTube, because I have gotten so many of those messages also. Cool. Well, okay. So let's get into some real juicy stuff. One of your favorite tools in this that you touched on very briefly in your intro is NLP, Neurolinguistic Programming. I first heard of NLP probably 4-ish years ago, and I feel like it got really popular and buzzwordy in the online coaching space, and everyone was getting NLP certified, but nobody could ever actually tell me what it was and why I should care about it. So can you please do that?
Yes. It can be very buzzy. And here's why, just to address that first and foremost, is there is no governing body. So somebody can go through a 2-hour training and say they've been certified in NLP, which is total baloney. You can read a book and say like, oh, I've been NLP trained. I don't know about that. I have over 1,200 classroom hours just in NLP, and that's plus all of my years of experience now. So NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro is the way we process information in our brains. Linguistics is the language piece. So that means, how do you speak to others? How do they speak to you? What kind of internal dialogue do you have going on? And then the programming piece is about habits and patterns. And the most basic way to explain it is, it's really the study of communication. And when you understand how somebody is showing up in a conversation, how are they communicating with you, and how do you communicate with them, then you can learn how to make some adjustments to make the conversation flow more smoothly, to be in conversation longer, to feel good about the conversation. So it's a real mix of psychology and sociology and behavioral economics. Like, there's all these things that come into play. And if you study any of those things, there's pieces that you can pull out and go, well, that's very NLP. Just like psychology can go to NLP and go, that's very psychology or sociology or whatever. So there's a lot of kind of crossover, but ultimately, here's how I describe it, is I attach it to my all-time favorite quote, which is, blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape. The more you understand how to communicate with somebody who has a different style than you, the more you're able to add some flexibility to put the other person at ease so that the conversation flows more smoothly. And the way to think about this is, if you've ever gone somewhere and met somebody and instantly felt a connection to them, it's like, I don't know where you've been all my life, Morgan, but I just feel connected to you. I just feel like we could sit here and, we could talk for 5 hours and it'll feel like 10 minutes. Now, on the flip side of that, you go somewhere, you meet somebody, you've been talking to them for 10 minutes and you feel like you need a nap. It's been like 2 hours, right? There's on both sides of the spectrum here, it's the person you feel really connected to, the person that you feel really disconnected from. One drives energy for you, the other one drains energy for you. So learning how to adjust your style so that the other person feels more like energized by a conversation with you, they feel more engaged in a conversation with you. That is where NLP can really come into play in a sales conversation, certainly with your branding and your marketing. Like, you want to be able to identify who are the right people for your brand, and you want them to really self-identify. Like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know where Morgan's been, but I just been waiting for her to show up. I need her help in my business. Like, the brand, everything about that should really speak to the person. And frankly, we also want to repel the people who aren't good fits. We want for them to feel drained by being in conversation or reading our stuff or listening to our podcast. Like, we want to bless and release those people so that we clear the field and make room for the people who are the right fits.
Yeah. 100%. So what I'm gathering from that is that it's a really fancy, psychologically informed way to get really good at knowing and speaking to our audience. Is that accurate?
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but like, there's so much overlap between everything you just said and what really makes a successful, strategic, impactful brand, which is why I love having guests like you on the podcast, because it's not just purpose, mission, vision, values, and visuals, right? That's a lot of it, but there's so much more that goes into it. And so it's really awesome for me whenever I get to have experts like you come on and kind of piece those puzzle pieces together for us. So how can we, if we're brand new to this and don't have, what do you say, 1,200 hours of training in NLP?
Many, yeah, quite a few.
How can we start to learn a little bit about this and like implement it into our business in the conversations we're having? Also, maybe in like some of our sales copy.
Okay, well, there's so many places I can go with this, but I want to make sure that these are tangible things that people can immediately do. One of the things is you want to pay attention to the phrases and the words that your clients use, right? This seems kind of obvious, but it's so critical because sometimes we might describe something in a certain way, but if you actually ask your clients, they'll describe it completely different. If you want to speak to your ideal client, it needs to be in their words. It's kind of like if you show up and you travel, right? Like, you decide to go overseas for the first time and you go to these really cool countries that everybody just raves about. And you go in and you say, well, I speak English. You all should speak English here because that's what I do. And other countries are going to look at you, especially now, right, in our society, and be like, how about if you go home? Because we speak whatever, French or Indonesian or like whatever it is, you don't get to show up and be like, speak like me and be like me. That is not attractive to somebody. But if you can speak their language, if you can use their phrases and their words. So for instance, like, here's just a random example. I had a client who was a photographer, and she was really struggling because she was always talking about her photographs when she was talking to clients. But when we started breaking down to the clients that she was talking to, I was like, well, how do they describe it? And she's like, they always call them pictures. I'm like, okay, so you should call them pictures. You should talk about the pictures they're going to get because that's speaking their language. That means something to them. So pay attention to that. So that's one idea. Another example that often comes up that people don't think about is we often have thoughts, right? And then we write them in our copy. So we have a thought, we think it from our perspective, and so we write it in our voice and in our way. But when we write, we tend to talk about I statements. Like, this is what I think. This is what I know. This is what I want for you. Well, that's not interesting to somebody who doesn't already know you and care about what you want and what you think so instead of writing all these I statements, like, I want this for you and I know this about you, you actually need to make them you statements so that the reader feels like you're speaking to the reader. So instead of saying like, I want this for you, actually, you should never say that to somebody who you don't know. You should say, would you be interested in this? Would you find value in this? Would this be helpful for you? Because that now engages their brain. You're actually asking them a question instead of making a statement about yourself, which, again, it's not very interesting to somebody who doesn't already think you walk on water and are the best thing ever.
Yeah. And I think also what you're saying of, I want this for you, it really creates a kind of uncomfortable power dynamic, I guess is a good way to say it, where you're telling that person, I'm smarter than you, I know better than you, it's all about what I want, and kind of making them feel like secondary, which, as an audience, if you came to me and said that, I would be like, well, who the heck are you to think that you get to have an opinion about what you want from me.
Yeah.
Is your brand feeling a little off? Like your visuals, messaging, and your overall vibe just are not lining up with where your business is headed? You probably don't need another pretty logo. You actually need a solid strategy behind your brand. That's exactly what we'll build together inside the Standout Brand Strategy session, a one-on-one deep dive into your brand foundation so that you can finally show up with clarity, consistency, and confidence. And if you're thinking about working with Spect & Co. on branding or web design, this is your first step for every single project that we do together. Clients who have gone through this process have tripled their audience size, doubled their revenue, and raised their rates by 30% or more. Use the link in the show notes to book your session, and don't forget to enter code SFBPOD at checkout to save $100.
And just so you know, to bring this back to an example that you already gave for the audience, is this is the equivalent of being the person who shows up in your email saying, I looked at your YouTube channel and I don't think you're doing it very well, and you should totally hire me. And even though, like, anybody who's listening, like, please know I'm saying this with love, because that's not your intention, but it's not about your intention. It's how is it received by the reader or by the buyer? And that is the difference. Like, are you willing to make some adjustments so that the message lands softly? So it doesn't sound like you're telling somebody all the things you know about them or why you're so much more important. In a sales conversation, there always needs to be a balance of power. And if there's an imbalance, if you act like you hold all the power in the conversation or you know everything, then people will go away. They'll go find somebody else that they feel connected to. So we want to allow for them to feel that connection to us. So it isn't about what I want. It's about what's important to you as the buyer.
And you make a really good point. I remember clear as day the first time that someone ever said to me, perception is reality. It was at like first job and I was not getting along with the manager. And so I was talking to the other manager about her and I was like, well, she just really makes me feel this way and blah, blah, blah. I don't like it, whatever. And I think I said like, but she thinks she doesn't do that or something. And the store manager gal was like, well, if that's how you feel, then that's what's happening. Like perception is reality. Yeah. And I think that has stuck with me ever since I was 17 years old working at the Gap, that like, it doesn't really matter how you intend things to come across. They get to choose how it comes across. And that is reality for them. If they feel whatever type of way, they're not going to give you a chance to like rectify that or be like, hey, that really hurt my feelings or whatever. Like you said, there are 1,000 other people on the internet who offer the same service you do. They're just going to go to one of them.
It's really about like are you making it easy for people? Is it easy to be in conversation with you? Is it easy to read your copy? Does it feel like you're speaking right to them? You know, the other thing that we often do is we try to speak to everyone because we think we want all the clients. But if you're talking and your messaging reads that it's to everyone, well, now it doesn't feel personalized. Doesn't really matter. This is why I always tell my clients, like, stop sending emails like, hey, y'all, I don't know about you, but I never sit around in a group and read emails as a group. Like, I just read emails by myself on my phone or on my computer. Like, nobody's sitting there with me. So, hey, y'all, there's no y'all here. It's just, hey, Nikki, because you need to speak to me. And we have all this great technology that allows you to actually put people's names in email so that it feels personalized. So instead of saying, you're all going to want to know about this, like, hey, Nikki, is this something you'd like to know about? That feels personalized, and you can do that to a broad audience and still make it feel like you're speaking to them. And, you know, the way I always feel like, okay, I either hit it out of the park or I really like didn't do well here is when people respond to my emails, my blast emails out to my whole list as if it is a personalized message to them from me. And they're responding like, thank you so much, Nikki, for this. Here's my answer to blah, 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 right? Like, oh, okay, that felt personalized. And if they're like, well, I didn't really pay attention because I just knew it was for everybody. Like, that's me missing a step with somebody.
Yeah, I've had that happen like 1 or 2 times in probably the last year. And both times I'm like, man, nailed it. Like, way to go, Morgan. That person had no idea that I sent that email to 500 people. And I want to be really clear here that it's not about fooling your people into thinking that you're talking only to them. We're not trying to trick anybody here. I think all of us know that we're on email lists or on social media or whatever with like lots of other people. So I do not ever expect Nikki to sit down and write an email to Morgan. What I want to know is that I am worth the extra 30 seconds of effort for you to put my name in the to field instead of, hey, y'all. It's just about like knowing that you're willing to try a little bit to make things feel personal, because then I know that when I do hire you, you're going to try a lot to make things feel personal.
Yeah. And even on emails or even on social media, like we all like to say, like, I hope everyone's having a great day. Well, again, I don't know about you, but I don't scroll social media with my girlfriends. It's just me. So instead of saying that, you could just say like, I hope you're having a great day, even though I don't love the I hope you're having a great day statement, but at least it feels personalized to the person in the moment, not like you're just one of all my followers. It's like, no, like, thank you for looking at this. I appreciate that you're here. Not, I appreciate that you're all here, because that's to everyone.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel personalized.
Yeah. And I think in especially the online business world where we are so far removed from each other and like nothing is personal and we do feel like just a number most of the time, there's a lot of very easy to do things that we can do to kind of counteract that. So you said you had a third point for us about how we can start implementing NLP into our business. What was that?
So another way, and I'm going to give this one from a live conversation type standpoint, because I've given you some things to do with your copy, some things to do with your emails and social media. In a live conversation, one of the places where you can really incorporate this, well, I kind of have two ideas, but one is paying attention to the other person's style. And this is like the simplest thing to pay attention to. If you're having a live conversation with somebody, whether it's on the phone or whether it's on Zoom or, in person, is you can pay attention to their rate of speech. And this might seem crazy, but we all have, like, if you think on a spectrum, like your rate of speech, think on like 0 to 10, 10 being like somebody who talks really, really fast. Sometimes they don't even take a breath between sentences and they just keep going, and there's nothing wrong with that person. That's just their rate of speech. They're a fast talker versus somebody else you're going to come into contact with. They might fall a little bit lower on the spectrum. Maybe they're at a 4 and they really take their time when they're speaking to you. Now, whatever your rate of speech is, you're perfect. But remember that in order to be in conversation with somebody, you need to make it easier for them. So if you're a fast talker and you want to earn the business of somebody who is a slower rate of speech, you need to slow down. Now, I'm not talking about mimicking them. I'm just talking about like showing some flexibility in your behavior. Be willing to slow down. If you're at an 8 and they're at a 4, if you could slow down to a 6, it's going to be more comfortable for them to be in conversation, because I don't know about you, I tend to be a faster talker. And I have somebody in my life who's very important. And this person has such a low, slow rate of speech that sometimes I think she's done with her sentence, but she's only halfway through. And when I'm not trying to be my best version, I will step on her thoughts. I will interrupt her when she's still speaking. That's so rude. Right. And so from a client standpoint or wanting to earn somebody's business, be willing to adjust, be willing to slow down. You don't have to be like your normal 8. When you meet somebody who's also an 8, great, that'll be easy conversation, but be willing to slow down just to match somebody's rate of speech. And again, you don't have to match it 100%, but if you're willing to make some adjustments, it'll be easier for them to be in conversation. You won't interrupt them. You won't step on their thoughts, and you won't talk so fast that they can't even process what you're saying. So make adjustments. And if you're a slower talker, you want to earn the business of somebody who's a faster talker, you got to be willing to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, that is such an interesting nuance, because that's not something that I really think about when I'm in conversations with people so much. I will start now. But I have been on the receiving end of that, where I've been even on a sales call with somebody I'm thinking about hiring. And they're going at a 10, and I get through the first 15 minutes of the phone call and I'm like, I need a nap now.
Yes.
That was exhausting. I will be the first to say that vibes matter when it comes to who you hire in your business. If I feel like every time we get on a call, I'm going to be exhausted by you, I'm not going to hire you. Business is already hard and tiring enough. I don't need more of that in my life. Vice versa. I've been on calls where somebody's a 1 or a 2. And I'm falling asleep over here. And I'm like, okay, come on, get to the point. Let's go. So, and I feel like kind of a jerk saying that, but it's the reality of it, that I also don't want to be hiring somebody in my business that I'm like, are you awake over there? Hello, come on.
Yeah. And the thing is like your buyers are making decisions about you in that same way. So whether, like there's no judgment here, Morgan, like you being you get to decide, you get to vote with your wallet as to who you're going to hire, and your clients get to as well. And if you're willing to make some adjustments, the other brilliant thing about NLP is that when you start making adjustments to the other person, oftentimes they'll adjust as well. They'll start to adjust. So we like to be in sync with people, and we like to naturally sync up with people. So let's say, using rate of speech again, you're an 8, you're talking to somebody who's a 2. If you're willing to slow down a little bit and get down to a 6 or a 5, what will often happen is that 2 will start to speed up a little bit, and you guys will find a happy medium, and it'll make the conversation easier for both of you. And it starts to happen naturally, but you have to first, for them to make any adjustment to you, you have to be willing to make adjustments for them first. So it is a way to actually earn more people's business, but also they'll feel better about their investment in you. And or if they're just making a decision, am I going to hire Morgan? Am I going to hire Nikki? Am I going to hire somebody else? They're going to hire that person, like you said, vibes matter, that they feel like, I just feel like she gets me. I just feel like she's easier. Like Morgan's easier for me to talk to. I feel like she's listening to me. She lets me, get out what I need to say. Like, you're going to be their choice. And that's what we're going for.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I say this a lot, but like, you are not the only person that offers your service on the internet. Frankly, you are probably not even the best. There's probably somebody out there who can do it better than you, but your client is going to hire you because they resonate with you specifically, your personality, the way that you talk, your common interests, your shared values, all of that. And to bring us back around to branding, your branding and like the way that your business looks online, but also the way that you show up is how you convey that to people. So I want to circle back to something you said a little while ago about using the language that your people use. That is so huge for me when I'm doing brand research. I will tell clients, if you have any intake forms or feedback or anything that your clients have written down, how they felt before they hired you, how they felt after they hired you, what the experience was like, I want to see that. But even better would be if you record cough calls or any of your coaching calls or any of that, and I can actually watch and hear them talk to you and about you. And I feel like people get a little uncomfortable about like, oh, well, I don't want to ask them if it's okay to record the call. First of all, people don't care. And second of all, when I tell you that that is like a gold mine, I'm not kidding. So Can you kind of talk us through ways that we can get some of that data?
Well, it comes down to asking better questions. Because one of the things that we often forget to do is ask a question that makes it easier for the person to answer. So if you just say to somebody, like, tell me what you think about what's it like to work with me? That's so open-ended. Like, they don't know where to go with that. And so are you going to get really specific information? Is that going to be helpful? Because the worst kind of testimonial is like, Nikki is really great. I recommend her. Okay, I appreciate it. And that said nothing. Right? But if you can ask more specific questions, like what was the thing that you were really struggling with before we started to work together? And what was the thing that felt like was a huge shift for you? What specifically, I love the word specifically, by the way, what specifically, and when you give that just helps like narrow their focus. And now you can actually gather, good information. Now, here's one of the things that, back to questions, is don't be afraid to ask permission. Would it be okay if I record this session today? And here's how I might use this information. Like, that's different than saying to somebody like, I'm going to record this and here's how I'm going to use it. But if you ask their permission, now it shows respect. Now they feel good about it. And they're probably going to be more inclined to want to be helpful to you versus being told that something's going to happen versus asking permission if something's going to happen. So just like in sales, I always say like one of the biggest mistakes is most of the time people don't even ask for the sale. It is totally fine to ask somebody like, hey, Morgan, is there ever an opportunity that we might work together, or that you would find value in getting some sales coaching? Like, there's nothing wrong with that question. You might be like, yeah, no thanks, Nikki, but you're probably not going to be offended that I asked. Like, you're not going to clutch your pearls and be like, how dare you? How dare you ask me that question? You'll be like, I'll just give her an answer. It will be easy to give her an answer to a simple question. don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I think if we have a central theme to this episode, it's just ask. Ask for the sale, ask for
Yeah.
permission, ask people for feedback. To date, favorite episode of my podcast that I have done. I don't remember the episode number, but it's how to use client feedback to improve your online business. And a lot of the things that you just said, like, do not say, will you just write me a testimonial? Ask them specific questions. We want a testimonial that says, Nikki's so wonderful and amazing and her sales skills helped me make $1 million. And I'm sure you have a lot of clients who do say that. But what I'm looking for with client feedback is more of the constructive feedback. What things can I improve on? I have made so many very positive changes in my business from having people say things like, well, everything was great, but sometimes I felt like I didn't know where we were at in the process, or, things like that I would never
Yeah.
have known that if I didn't ask and if I wasn't open to hearing the actual answer.
Yeah, I think most people are afraid to ask because they're going to be like, oh, it might crush me. But yeah, being able to ask. I know when I was a young manager and I was managing a team of 20 some salespeople, I was the only person in our company that had ever given my sales team the opportunity to review my performance. And I gave them very specific things. And it was simple. It was like, I even used the red, yellow, green light system of the green, what do you really enjoy about the things in the way that, my style shows up? Yellow, what's the thing that sometimes feels confusing and or isn't quite there yet? And red, what are the things that you absolutely want me to stop? I learned so much in that. And I'm never afraid to ask my clients for that type of feedback. Now, I will say there are times where I can't take in feedback. And so I don't ask in that moment. I wait and make sure I'm feeling resilient, because sometimes it can be crushing to hear somebody say something that maybe someday you say it to me and I'll be like, okay, that's really good feedback. And another day, when I'm not feeling very resilient, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I need to go to bed and cover my head for 3 days because that crushed me. So, ask for it in the moment when you feel resilient and you can take it in, and ask, because like you said, you learned so much in those moments. Maybe it's one little tweak of hey, at the start of our meeting, here's where we are today and here's where we're going. That might be the thing that you just need that lets them feel more confident about their experience with you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think also, and I make this point in that other episode, so if you are super interested by this part of the conversation, go find that episode and listen to it.
Yeah.
But you get to decide what feedback you take action on and not. So if you had a client who was not an ideal client and you're thinking, I never want to work with somebody like that again, then throw their feedback out the window. Don't listen to them. Doesn't matter. But if you had a
they
client,
don't count.
exactly. As business owners, we get to choose. But if you had somebody who you really loved and you are like, if I had 100 clients like Nikki, I would be so happy. And Nikki says, hey, here's 1 or 2 things that were just not ideal. Then maybe that's somewhere that you focus some effort on adjusting. But that's also somebody who you really want to pay attention to your answers to questions like, how were you feeling before we worked together? What is something that really surprised you? What kind of transformation have you seen? How are you feeling now? Because those are the words and phrases that, like you're saying with NLP, you want to work into your sales copy and your conversations and everything that you're doing so that more people like Nikki can read all of that stuff and say, oh, she's speaking directly to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have to speak right to the heart of the matter, right to the heart of the person, so they can make that decision for themselves of yeah, this person is for me, or no, it's not. Right? I want people to be able to identify quickly of I really am on board with Nikki. I like her voice. I like the way she coaches. I like these things. Or for them to be like, I can't stand her and I'm out. Great. Either one is fine, but I don't want the people just kind of sitting on the fence being like, she's all right. No, you either like me or you don't, and that's okay.
Well, and you make a good point of that it's fine if they don't like you. I think by this stage in business, you have developed such a distinct brand and voice of the things that I would imagine you probably don't get on very many sales calls with people who are bad fits because they have already weeded themselves out.
Yeah, all of my copy, all the things I do should help them self-identify quickly of this person is not for me. And
Yep.
yeah, so
And
you're
that's
right.
totally fine.
I don't get on a lot of calls with tire kickers, the people who are just I just want to hang out with you. And there's very specific language that I use to help eliminate some of that. And it's very rare I get on a call with somebody who isn't at least somewhat open to being coached, and whether it's, the right fit or not, we're going to determine that in the call. But yeah, it's pretty rare. And it does come down to, I'm real this is what you see is what you get. People are often get on a strategy call with me and they're like, wow, Nikki, you are exactly like how you are on your podcast. I'm like, yeah, what you hear, what you see from me, it's consistent.
Yeah. And isn't that the biggest compliment for somebody to say, like, you are so authentically you that I've never met you before and I knew exactly what I was going to get.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm not surprised that you said that, Nikki, because I've heard you say this on the podcast. Or, oh my gosh, I expected that was going to be the thing you were going to say to me. And like, yeah. And that also is reassuring for them as the buyer to be like, yes, this is what I was expecting to get. Now, hopefully it's like, this is what I was expecting to get and even more. Like, that's when I feel like I've really knocked it out of the park for them. And that happens often. I don't want somebody to get on a call and be like, you are so different than what I was expecting. That would be the worst thing somebody could say to me. Well, they could probably think of other worse things, but it would be a bad one.
They'd probably ask for their money back and that would not be fun. Yeah. And I mean, that is good sales, is NLP like we're talking about, but that is also what it looks like to build a really strong personal brand. All of this stuff is so interconnected that it's really hard to talk about one without also talking about the other. So I love that.
I heard this on your podcast too. Like, one of the things you had talked about is how oftentimes people will actually pay more, or they'll feel good about, like, maybe they could find somebody who they could pay less for whatever service, but because they're really confident in the brand, they're really confident in you, like, it's not down to just like, well, I could save $5 if I go hire this other person. It's like, no, I'm going to work with Morgan because I'm fine with her pricing because I know she's going to deliver for me.
Yep, exactly. And that has a lot to do with follow through, but it also has a lot to do with branding and how you position yourself. The way that I illustrate this for people is that I can go buy the same cereal and milk and toilet cleaner at Target as I can at Walmart. But I like the way I feel in Target. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to spend probably 20% more. And I'm totally fine with it because I don't like going to Walmart. And that's kind of what you have to do with your brand. They can get the same service lots of other places for lots of different price points. It's about how you make them feel. And that involves your visuals, it involves the way you talk to them, it involves your sales skills. It's this whole ecosystem. So yeah. To start to wrap us up, I did not prep you for this at all. So we'll see what your answer is. But can you tell us a story about a client of yours who you did some of the sales and NLP training with that just had huge success afterwards? Like, give us your best transformation story.
Well, I'll give you the most recent, like, big one that stands out is I have a client I've been working with for a while. We did a strategy session and she was going to be delivering a proposal for a scope of work. Now, there's a lot that I do when I review clients' proposals, and I'm looking for, bringing in some of the NLP thing. One in particular is top-down selling. So I recommend that she lists her most expensive thing first. And we had a few options that she was giving in this. So top-down selling, super important. Most people go bottom up, and there's very NLP reasons not to do that. So it's like you're essentially telling someone they have to pay more to get more. But if you do top down, the short version is they essentially realize that they have to give things up in order to save. And it's a very different mindset. Top down selling, that was one thing. The other thing was, really encouraging her to stand in her place of credibility and authority because she felt hesitant because it was a big dollar amount. For her to propose, she was like, well, I think I'm really going to, just say that the commitment is this long. And when I looked at it, I was like, well, let's really think about where are they going to get the transformation? They're going to get the transformation by committing to a minimum of X number of months with you of this service. So I asked her to double it. And that was just one thing, right? And so by delivering the proposal in this way, the client actually selected the most expensive thing, and it resulted in another $13,500 in business just by making these tiny little shifts to the way it was proposed, the way it was laid out for the client. Now she gets to deliver on something she's really excited about. They're really excited because they're going to see phenomenal results from this commitment that they're making to themselves and of this investment. And so to me, that's like the ultimate of like just being able to look at something, make some tiny little adjustments and tweaks to the way things are laid out in the language that's being used. So for instance, clients love to say like, this will do this, or this can do that in language. And I get those out of my clients' language. It's like this, like we do this and we will do this, but it's not the like, well, when we work together, we will do da da da. It's like, no, we work together and this is the deliverables. Like speak in present tense and none of this can language. It's like, no, not can. Like this is the results that you can expect when you implement the things that I teach.
Yeah. And so there's two things that I want to call out there. First, I feel like a lot of us have this idea that if we want to make more money or charge more or sell our bigger package, we need to always be like adding more value, which really translate into creating more work for ourselves. And you just gave us a perfect example of how that's not the case. We don't need to be changing our offers and like packing them with more deliverables. We just need to change the way we're framing them. So that was point number one. And point number two is about using that direct language. Like you said, somebody is coming to me because they're unsure of what to do with their brand. They are lacking confidence. So I need to be sure of what to do and kind of exude that confidence for them to feed off of. If I'm saying, oh, well, it might do this, or it could, or it can, or maybe, they're going to be like, well, she doesn't seem like she's very sure. So why should I be sure enough to give her 10,000 of my dollars?
That's right. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. It always just blows my mind how much of this stuff is like right in line with all of the branding work that I do. Tell us how we can connect with you. And then you have a special little offer to share with us also. So tell us about that as well.
Yeah. So the podcast, obviously, your listeners, if you're open to hearing another podcast, come check out the Sales Maven podcast. I do have a special offer. I always like to wrap my kind of way to connect with me around a gift. So I have a training that is all around the questions that you ask. It's called Seal the Deal Questions That Close Sales. And it teaches you how to create the two most important types of questions that you're asking when you're talking to a prospective client, your right fit questions and your expertise questions. These two types of questions will be a differentiator in making it easier to earn the person's business. So normally I charge for it. I want to gift it to your audience to go through the training. You can get it by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Morgan. So this truly is for your audience. I would love to gift that training to you. It's something you can go through, little pieces at a time, or you can go through and watch, all of the different training modules in there, but they're short, they're punchy, and they're very specific on how to ask questions in a much better way and gives you lots of suggestions for the questions that you can ask.
Amazing. Well, that's so kind. Thank you for sharing that with us. All of Nikki's links will be in the show notes. Highly, highly encourage you to go listen to the Sales Maven podcast. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts regularly, but Nikki's is one that I will tell you I love and I learned something from every episode. So thanks again for being here, and we will see everyone next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.